Hi, welcome to Splash and Go. I'm your host, Nate Ryan, here with Dale Jarrett. And DJ, we saw a lot of teamwork on Sunday at Talladega Superspeedway. It wasn't the manufacturer, though, that we're used to seeing teamwork from. Chevrolet watched what Ford has done, what Toyota has done at these restrictor plate tracks in the past, and they decided they're going to put their heads together, really for the first time that I can remember in recent memory, and really work together. Was that the key to Chase Elliott getting that win Sunday at Talladega?
It was certainly one of the big things that they did with having this meeting and all the drivers buying into the premise that they were going to work together until the checkered flag fell. And, you know, it wasn't that they lined up, made a run and made the pass, but they did all the right things. You know, good fortune had them lining up pretty much nose to tail on the last restart anyway. That certainly helped. Chase Elliott letting the one car of Kurt Busch in, got another Chevrolet in there. So one thing that I've always been afraid of is with our sport in NASCAR is that you start talking about team orders and manufacturers getting together. You don't want to hear that. The fans don't want to hear. I don't like that idea. But in this type situation, in a few races a year, because at other places it's really not going to come into play, I don't believe. But in a situation like this, I think if you have that opportunity, especially when you have the other two manufacturers and their drivers working together, then you have to do something. So I was really surprised it worked out as well as it did, because these things get so crazy at the end that every driver is there for the same reason, and that's to win the race. But they bought in that they could all have better finishes if they stayed in line and performed their job.
Well, you mentioned DJ. I mean, I think there is some disapproval of it from the fan base and really from across the industry, because you want to be every man for himself. But looking at how Ford made it work at Speed Weeks this year, they made it work at Talladega last year. Toyota has certainly made it work at Daytona in the past. Why did it take, do you think, Chevrolet this long? Was it simply, what I've heard is that Chevrolet, the teams kind of struggle, I think, sometimes to have that symbiosis that you have with Ford and Toyota. Is it just a matter of, like, maybe they had to warm up to the idea, like fans and others are still trying to get used to the idea of, like, hey, manufacturers need to work together?
It wasn't anything that they've ever had to do before. It hasn't been a conversation. Yeah, they watched this with Toyota and then with the Fords, especially the Stewart-Haas Fords at Talladega last year. So I think they thought that, you know, they've always been good enough that they didn't really need that. And there wasn't a need for it in the racing. You know, their drivers took care of that for them. They won plenty of races. You know, they had Dale Earnhardt and Darrell Waltrip and Jeff Gordon driving their race cars and Jimmy Johnson winning races at these places. There wasn't any reason to try to formulate something like this. But it's become necessary now. They have a lot younger drivers, and things have changed about how you go about racing these. And when you have the other manufacturers, drivers, and teams buying into what they're doing, then you can't continue just to keep yourself separate because you have this belief. It's time to buy in. So it worked for them. I still think that they had to have some good fortune to make all of it work, but I applaud them for putting it together. Again, I think that we should caution the fans that hey, I would be against team orders all the time. I promise you, if that were going to be the case week in and week out, you know, of letting somebody make a pass or something like that, that's not going to be the case here. And nobody made a pass yesterday. We saw somebody, the winner of the race, let another driver in because he felt like that might be a situation that could help him get to where he wanted to go and was going. So for a couple of races a year, I'm okay with what's happening.
Well, we certainly saw it was effective in the season opening Daytona 500 when Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet team actually worked with the Toyotas of Joe Gibbs Racing. After Talladega, though, I think we know that Toyota's probably not going to find any friends in the Chevrolet, certainly not the Ford camp in the future. Toyota only has 5 full-time cars, essentially, DJ. What do they do now when plate racing, Talladega and Daytona, is such strength in numbers, and now we've seen that Chevrolet and Ford have kind of figured out how to make it work together? What does Toyota do when with 5 full-time cars, they're always going to be at a disadvantage of the other two manufacturers? Yeah,
you know, of course, you know, they won the Daytona 500 with Denny Hamlin this year, so they did make it work somehow, some way. They have very talented drivers. Yeah, even Kyle Busch had himself in a position yesterday there, but his brother left him hanging out on that last restart. But I think that, you know, in a situation like this, they're just going to hope that they can make some friends along the way or get in a position. If you have a fast enough car, you will always find somebody willing, whether it's a Chevrolet driver or a Ford driver, willing to help you go if you've got a fast enough car. I think the problem that the Toyotas had yesterday is they weren't fast enough to really help anybody along the way. They needed help, and when it really came down to it, they didn't have that. So when you only have 5 of them out there, and Denny Hamlin had problems, so he wasn't really a factor all day with that early accident. So do they look at trying to acquire more teams and more cars to combat a situation like this?
Yeah, well, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. And as always, we're keeping an eye on NASCAR daily, NASCAR America, 5 p.m. Eastern, NBCSN Monday through Thursday. You should check it out. Thanks for watching Splash and Go.
Hey Motorsports fans, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe before you go for all the latest news and highlights across motorsports.